I'm not going to go by the cue cards because I realized that I don't need them. They're just a distraction. I'm just going to do what I do. So I'm Tracey Sedorovich. I am from Mountaintop, Pennsylvania, and I'm a special education teacher. This is my 30th year teaching, and so currently I'm teaching in high school, and I love my job. So my testimony kind of goes through. People are the thread in my testimony, and so I guess I can start with like the beginning. So I was sent to church as a young girl, and I went every Sunday, and I did everything I was supposed to do, and or what I thought I was supposed to do, but it wasn't. It kind of didn't. It didn't reach me. I mean, God surely had something for me, and he planted seeds, but I don't know that they were being watered in a way that my brain processed it. And so I went to church, and I thought I was doing the right thing, but it kind of, I don't know if it meant anything to me then. And so time kind of passed, and I thought to myself, well, I can kind of say this whole church thing in my head. I don't really have to be there. And I recall kind of sitting outside on a stoop and saying to being angry, that I didn't have to be in there. And I thought that I could kind of do this on my own. And so that was definitely not good. And my teenage years, I remember trying to, God just keeps coming at me with people throughout my life. And so my first person was my best friend Tara, and she and I thought, well, let's read the Bible together. And so we pulled out a Bible, and here we were going, and it was the King James version, so we really didn't understand what we were reading very well. And so that kind of put the kibosh on that, and I kind of turned away. And so fast forward a little bit, I got married young to a man who didn't believe in God, and I was easily persuaded at that point I wasn't in a very good place in my faith, and I really wasn't doing much with God myself. And so I thought, all right, at that point, just kind of was dark. It was a dark place of God not really leading me in any way that I knew. I'm sure at this point in hindsight, he was working in the background. But so my marriage was a good marriage at that point, but we did not have God in the middle of our marriage. We had God nowhere in our marriage. And I was an angry, kind of foul-mouthed person who didn't, I definitely was not, looking back on me, I don't know why anybody would really want to be with me. We had no children for the first 7 years. I kind of thought it might make sense to just kind of hang my hat on something, which was like, I thought I didn't believe in God, but I knew who he was. I just didn't think that he was something important in my life. Then I kind of thought that I could just be a good person, and that was enough. And so a girl that I worked with, in comes the first person God sent to work on me, and that says, so I think we need Jesus in your life. And I laughed at her. And I said, no, I'm okay. I think that like I can believe in a Cheerio, and that's going to be okay. My goal is just to be a good person, and I think I'm good. So that kind of gave up on her approach to me. I wish she had pursued that in hindsight, but so she didn't. but God knew that he was going to keep sending people my way. So eventually I got pregnant and had a beautiful baby boy. And 3 months into that wonderment of being just in love with being a mom, my son became very sick. He had many seizures, and it was a very hard time in our marriage. We had each other, but I think that was the beginning of my husband worked a lot, and I had to go back to work, and my son was sick, and it was hard. And so eventually we found some medicine to control his seizures, but over time, the medicine no longer worked. And the neurologist said to us that he needs to have surgery so we can see. We really don't think it's going to work, but we're going to give this our last shot, because at this point he was seizing so often that he wouldn't really have any good quality to his life. Seizures would continue to work on his brain, and he would become more and more disabled. So we said, okay, in walks the next person that God needs in my life for me to stir the pot for me a little bit. And this beautiful family from Ghana moved into our neighborhood, and we had a fabulous relationship with one another. And Comfort was a very godly woman. We became fast friends, and she loved my family and I loved her family. And as we got to this point that Joey needed surgery, I cried to Comfort, and I said, I don't know what to do. And she said, I do. I'm going to pray. And so she had already taken my kids to church and kind of loved on them in a way that I didn't know how to in a godly way. And she had already been praying for me and for my family to find Jesus. And so fast forward to Joey needs surgery, and we go in. We're in the hospital, and this very vivid moment of this time was just, I said to my husband, is God punishing us because we don't believe in him? Because what I had learned in my childhood going to church was that God was a rule-based God, that he was a punishing God, that he was an angry God. And so I thought this was God punishing us. And so I don't remember what his response was, but I do remember that very dark feeling of not knowing what to do. And after Joey's surgery, his neurologist came out and said he was a miracle child because they got everything they needed and he was going to be okay, that he wouldn't have any more seizures. And I don't even know, at that point I didn't associate miracles with God, but Comfort did. And Comfort continued to pray for our family, and Comfort continued to tell me that everything was going to be okay. I also had Linda, who was a woman that I worked with. And Linda was a very spiritual woman who she had all kinds of stories, and she would tell me that she was praying for us. She gave me on a piece of paper one day, and it said, "Everything everywhere is already all right." And I didn't know what to do with that, but I knew that Linda loved me, and I knew that Linda had known that Joey was going to be okay, and everybody had faith that Joey was going to be okay but me, because I didn't know. I had no God to steer me and to lead me, and I just had what I thought was being a good person. It wasn't enough. Fast forward a couple of years, Joey never did have seizures again, and he is okay. God took care of him. God knew from the beginning that he was going to be okay. I just didn't have the faith to know that. So as time moved forward, Comfort's watering of the seed that was already planted, and Linda's watering of the seed that was already planted helped that to grow. And I had inclinations of being drawn to God and being drawn to prayer and watching family and friends and how they loved us so deeply and cared for us so greatly and served us in so many ways. And it occurred to me that was God working in them. And so my heart started to soften, and I kind of knew where that was going. Unfortunately, at that time also, my marriage fell apart. That embarrassment, I realized that I shouldn't, but I do still carry that with me. So when my marriage fell apart, time passed, and I came across an old high school friend who God kind of put in my purview also. That person was also going through a divorce at the time, and so we commiserated together, eventually got together, and he became my knight in shining armor. The one that God sent to me to change not only who I was, but my kids, and to show me, to really show me what it looked like to live out the love of God. An extremely God-filled man who lived out the fruits of the Spirit every day in his life. And God knew, he knew somehow that we were going to be okay. We were certainly unequally yoked. Jimmie never pushed. He never asked me where I was in my walk of faith, but he trusted God and obviously saw something because we married. We went to a church called The Gathering. And that was just a gym in the back of a Lutheran church where all these people would just come. It wasn't a specific faith, that they didn't follow the Lutheran faith, but they were just a group of broken people. And as I went there each Sunday, this pastor spoke right to my heart. He said everything I needed to hear to know that God wanted a relationship with me, that he was a loving father, that he pursued me this whole time that I was lost. And while my friends along the way, the people that God put in my life, watered the seeds that were there, I didn't understand what was happening until then. And so every week I sobbed as the Holy Spirit worked in me. And we went to a Bible study every week, and we served at the hospitality station. And I learned what it was like to be a part of God's family. And this church was my family, and they were inspiring, and they cared that we were there each week, and we mattered to them and they mattered to us. And I grew knowing that the Bible was something that mattered, and the words in here were filled with God's promises, and he spoke to my heart as we moved through. And it was such a beautiful time of revelation and just healing and finding and learning. And in that, my thirst just continued to grow, and I wanted to know more, and I wanted to be more, and I wanted to do better, and I wanted to serve more. And we moved and we found a different church. This church was just as good. This church was even more. I continued to grow and I continued to learn and I continued to serve, and missions trips and leading Bible studies together and women's group and just so much. And we were baptized. And let me tell you, when I came up out of the water from that baptism, something so real happened. And I was so changed. And I was so touched and so inspired by God. And so we continued to grow together in our love of Jesus and seeking Him in all that we did, and learning how to love and serve and grow and being stable in His word. And then Jimmie got cancer. And I knew that he would be healed. And I prayed for him and with him and over him. And our community prayed over him, and our church prayed over him. But a year later, he passed. And I knew that everything was going to be okay, because I was so excited for where he was going. And for me to know that he was sitting at Jesus's table from that point forward brought me such incredible joy. And that was really the beginning of my fire. I have loved the Lord so deeply. My friend said to me, "Tracey, I think you need to go to counseling because you're really not processing this well." So I went, but I understood in a way that God had this, and it was so okay. And my kids knew that it was okay, because we were all in the same place. We trusted God completely, 100% completely, that He had a perfect plan for us, even though we were grieving. But since then, I can't get enough. I can't get enough of God's word. I have this joy and peace, and I wake up every morning on fire for the Lord. All I want to do is just share Him with everyone, because how could He have taken me from this angry, foul-mouthed girl who thought abiding by a Cheerio and being good was enough, to someone who felt such an overwhelming peace and joy and love and desire to share who He is, so that someone else could feel what I was feeling. I joke because I say, like if the ice cream store down the road has this new flavor and it's really, really good. You want to share your ice cream with a friend, right? You want your friend to enjoy what you're enjoying and get the same, love the flavor with you. And so Jesus is kind of like ice cream. I want to share Him with my friends, and I want them to experience what I'm experiencing. And so I trust God in every step that I take. I know that everything, everywhere is already all right. everything comes full circle. And the beautiful end to this story is that Rich, the kid's dad, also found a very godly woman who loves him dearly, and he's about to get married, and led him to the Lord. And so we have since forgiven one another, become friends, and we are, God heals all wounds, and forgiveness is beautiful, but only in Jesus. And so God is good.